Hey guys, and welcome to SnappyDude's complete cage guide for Skylar and Plux. I hope you're having a great day, so let's get started. So I am going to start in the central island for these cages, just because physically that is the first place that you go in the game. But I will warn you that a lot of these you cannot get until you get the other arm upgrades. So once you get those upgrades, you'll have to come back and get a lot of these. But physically, it's the first place you go. So I'm going to do all 9 of the cages in this area. Then I'm going to go on to the Bouncy Mountain area. And then the Time Ruins area. And then finally the Machine area. So that I hit all the areas of the game in the order that you physically go to them. But this isn't the order that you necessarily will get the cages in, but it's easier for you to reference then and know where stuff is in this guide. So this first one is going to be a little confusing. This is one of the first islands you get to when you leave the escape pod, but I'm going back towards it from the center of the islands. So I am walking backwards right now, so take that into account. But up here on top of this hill on one of these first islands that you come to, there is a fire right there. So I'm going to get 3 cages here. So one is up here on the very, very top. And over that way you can see the escape pod. One is down here. You're going to need the time arm for this one. You're going to be able to manipulate the time orbs to get this one. Like I said, you're going to have to come back for some of these in the guide. And the final one is just up and around the corner from this time orb. If you were coming from the escape pod, you'll notice the cave to come over to this time orb one. It goes through the mountain. I don't know if that's right there in front of me. You see that cave? If you're coming from over where the escape pod is, you'll notice that cave. You'll be able to go through that cave and get to the time orb one. So that's how you'll notice that one. You don't necessarily have to go up to that peak and then jump down. So this is a little bit further on towards the central center of all the islands. And that's the last one down in that southern chain of islands. This one is up facing that southern chain of islands. It's along the coast there. If you turn around right after you get the chieftain, it's kind of back. If you turn left, it's in that back corner back there behind you along the coast. So this one is straight in front of her. It is up on a thing, and this is the easiest way I could find to get up here is to just climb this stupid thing. It's not nearly as hard as it looks. The geometry in the game is pretty solid for being able to climb stuff. If there's another way to get up here, and I'm sure there is, there's probably an easier way than climbing this mountain the way that I did it. But it's way up here, pretty hard to miss. Right there in the center of the map by the orb dispenser gumball machine thing. Next up, we have one that I missed somehow and I had to go back for. This is back here behind the waterfall. So this is in the central island right there by the orb machine. You're going to go over there to the waterfall on the left side of the map leading towards the Bouncy Castle and back behind the waterfall. Follow the path and it's right there in front of you. This is again in the center of the map. It looks like the desert area, but we're still in the center of the map here. This is leading up towards the desert area at the top, so this would be along the north of the central area. And it's right there on the left side of that. This one is over by the door for the machine area on the right-hand side. And you're going to come back here and get these boxes. And you're going to need the magnet arm to get this one. So again, you're going to have to come back for this one after you get at least far enough to get the magnet arm in the machine area. Now we're going to go into the first chain of islands over in the Bouncy Mountains over on the left. And this is right after you get in there. You're going to get to this first house area across a little plank bridge after you jump down. And that's right up there on the houses on the left-hand side. So this is a pretty easy to define area. You'll notice this when you're following the path around naturally. This is right along the path that you have to take anyway, and you're going to go through this jumping puzzle here. I did this with the time orb. I think it's a lot easier to do with the time orb just because I think that puzzle's easier to do with the time orb. But once you get up there, you're going to turn around and come back after you complete that jumping puzzle, and it's back here, hidden behind you. You passed it. Easy to miss the first time because you have to turn around to see it. So this is, you're going to cross both these jumping towers here, these wooden towers. Right after you get the jetpack, you go up and around, you cross these wooden towers, and you're going to get here. Oh, and there's a gap in the fence, so we're going to go back through this gap in the fence. There's some boxes back here. You think that's everything, but if you look around, back here, there is a cage, and you're going to have to go across these platforms. And you can open the cage. Now you're going to follow that same path. You're going to go out through that hole in the fence and keep following the path around to this button. This is the button to take down those lasers. And you're going to smash these boxes right behind the button. Up on the little ledge, there's some boxes. You're going to smash those. And apparently I'm going to look around so you clearly understand the area that we're in. And if you look down and behind this ledge that is right behind the button, you will see a cage that you can drop down to. And boom. There you go. And this is right after you get the jetpack, right after you push that button to lower the lasers by the jetpack, following the natural progression. So we just got out in this mushroom area. I like to call it the mushroom area. There's lots of mushrooms here. You're going to be bouncing around on a lot of mushrooms here. So you're going to take these mushrooms across and to your right. Stay along this right wall. You're going to bounce on this mushroom. Get up on top of this house. So there's another mushroom back here. This is probably my first playthrough, is probably when I got this. I played through the game 3 times now. But this footage is kind of a mix of all 3 of those playthroughs, so bear with me if sometimes I seem like I'm an idiot collecting these cages. So you're just going to go along this right wall over here, climb up the waterfalls using the mushrooms, and you'll find it. This is back right underneath where you enter this area. Underneath there's some caves. And if you go down in there, and it's right along that wall that you enter on. This is down on the beach. This is pretty hard to miss once you go down on the beach. There's a little, I call it the little village down here, and there's a cage down here in the village hid behind this net so that it's a little hard to see. I think this one's pretty hard to miss. Like I said, it's down here on the thing. So there's a cave down here on the beach. You're going to want to go into this cave. It's right in the center of this mushroomy area. And in this cave down on the beach, there is another cage. Wow, look at that. What a surprise. A cage and a cage guide. Who knew? So, bouncing up this cliff, this is right where the cave is, right down there. You're going to go up the cliff. Instead of going into the cave, you're going to climb the cliff and go up over top of the cave entrance, and you're going to find one right up here, hiding just above the cave entrance. So this one is the hardest one to get in the entire game, in my opinion. You have to do a roll and then jump. On a controller, I believe roll is the right trigger, and if you time it right coming out of that roll, you'll do sort of this forward leap. I didn't understand how to do that. The pop-up for it never happened on my thing, so I never knew that I could do this forward lunge leap. And if you time it right, you'll carry your momentum out of the jump onto the mushroom, and it will springboard you forward and carry you through these mushrooms. In my opinion, this is the hardest one to do. This rolling thing is kind of hard to stick. And if you don't get the timing right, you run out of jetpack and fall a million times like I did. This is actually the shortest version of me actually completing this that there is. Otherwise, I fell and died a bunch. So this is the very next area. Right after you get that checkpoint, there's a house in front of you. Hiding behind it is your next cage. Continue along the path, and this one is straight in front of you. It is just a little bit in front of that first one by the house. The house is just back down there, and we're going to keep going forward. So we're going to go across these platforms. This is a little bit further down the path now. So you're going to go across those 3 platforms that you have to jump across right there. And now we're coming up on the snow area of the mountain. And right before we get there, right when we get to these burning houses, we're going to take a right here, and we're going to go across some of these grapple points. And there's a cage back here. This one's also pretty easy to miss on your first time through. If you don't turn and notice the grapple points going back here, it's almost impossible to notice. So this is up along the snow path. Once you get a little ways in here, you're going to have to climb up this little cliff face here. You'll notice, because when you come around the side of this cliff face, if you look up, this is the first one in this area. It's not too far in. You'll see this wooden structure up on top of this little cliff off to your side, and it's hiding up in that wooden structure. Then you're going to jump down from here, and that area that you saw that was right there when I was looking down, right where that cage was, if you saw me look down. So there's me. That's where you would climb up at. And if you don't climb up it and you come down here, right below it, there's all these chopped down trees. And you're going to be able to look over. And there's another cage right over there. I actually found this one before I found the one up there. I actually missed the one up there. So if you see this one when you're walking along, because if you follow the natural path, you might actually you'll notice or see this area down here. And it makes it pretty obvious to jump down there. So you might actually get that one first and then be able to figure out where that cliff is to climb that cliff and get that other one up there on top of that cliff and that wooden structure. So here you go. Follow the natural path along, and you're going to come to this river that you have to cross. And, oh, look over there. There's one over here on this island. It's pretty easy to see, but I could see how it could easily get missed if you're running through here pretty quick. I think I missed it in one of my playthroughs just because I got going and didn't pay attention. Again, natural path, you have to take this to complete the game. And straight in front of you, there's a cage up on that ledge. As long as you're not blind, you're probably going to see it. If you missed it, I'm sorry, but you should probably get your eyes checked. So you're going to bounce up, and this is the first torch coming up this mountain. When you see that first torch when you're bouncing up the peak of the mountain, you're going to turn and go through this little gap in the rocks, and back there's that cage. So now we're in the desert. So I believe you can't get this one when you first come through here. You have to come back. I don't think you have the time orb at this point. Once you get the time orb, you can come back. Because this is right after you get into the desert area, and I don't think you have the time orb quite yet at this section. So once you get the time orb, you can come back, and this is the natural path. But you normally don't follow the curve back around here. But once you get it, you come back, you follow the curve around, you turn on this time orb, you finish following these grapple points, and just straight back in here is the cage that we're looking for. But physically, this is the first one you pass, so that's why it's at this spot in the guide. So, forgive me, like I said, this isn't necessarily in chronological order that you can obtain them. It's in the physical order that you're going to pass them by, passing through the game. So keep that in mind if you're having trouble figuring out where these are from the guide, and my explanations are shit, which I know they are. So this is basically straight off in front of that. If you didn't follow that curve around and go through those grapple points and get that other orb, when you go straight across, you're going to be able to climb up this cliff face on your right after you jump across to the next set of rocks that we're on now. And you climb up these set of rocks, and this is a shitty thing. So we're going to climb back up the rocks again, because I suck at jumping. Not very good at platformers. But if you climb to this mountain peak, which you don't have to do, normally it has you follow the gap and you go through and you never climb this mountain. But if you climb the side of this mountain and you come all the way up to the top, You can look across, and there is a cage and grappled thing. See back there, straight in front of me, that's where those other grapple points were for the cage right before this one. So you get this cage, and then you just follow the natural path again, straight ahead. We're in the area with all the waterfalls now, and when you come back in here underneath where this cavern is, you're going to come down here. This one is so much easier to get if you have the time orb. I have gotten it not using the time orb, but there's 2 turrets in here, and it can be quite the pain in the butt getting past them without the time orb. So use the time orb when they're shooting you over there. Jump across to that other platform, come up behind them, and then open the cage. So I believe this is in the same cave area. When you follow this cave area a bit further, that's right after you first get into the cave area. And again, that cave area is right after you enter this area. It is right below you on that cliff face, and this is the opposite end of it. This is after you come out of that waterfall cave area. Follow it around. There's some sand. Oh, look. It's a gap. Oh, there's a cage back here. So this area is pretty self-explanatory. You should be pretty recognizable. You're jumping across these like 5 platforms. There's turrets on 3 different pillars over there. And you're just gonna, well, I'm gonna kill all these turrets probably, and probably kill some robots. But you're gonna go straight back off these platforms. This is the natural path of the game. And normally you would pass over a bridge, land bridge up here in front of you. But there's a gap and a drop down sort of valley over there on the left hand side, and we're going to go down here and explore. Again, this one's pretty easy to miss because if you're just progressing through here, you think this is just a hole in the ground that will kill you if you fall in. But there are some platforms down here that will go over to this cage right here. So up there's a time orb that you have to activate to progress, and we are going to get a cage that is right behind it. This is right there near the dinguses that are blocking the way that Plux never shuts up about. So after you knock that thing down and you jump down in this area, you'll notice this hole right behind you, and you can jump down in the hole. And there's a cage down here in the hole. Woo! Yay for holes. Look at all the urns. I've got an urn, I've got an urn. Okay, this is right where you get the time orb. So you get the time orb right there. That's where you get the time orb the first time you come through here. If I remember correctly, you get it right about here. And you turn it on. And bingo. So after you set that off, you can come up here. Normally you pass this by, you go to the right here, you jump across these rocks. Oh, this looks dangerous. It looks like it's leading... Oh, there's a cage hiding back here. Oh. So if you're smart, you don't die the way I died. So this is the first, like, turning tower thing that you're going to mess with and manipulate for time to progress forward. But before you manipulate that tower and turn it, activate the orb, and you have to activate the time orb to do this. And behind you, down where you couldn't jump before, because before there was sand down there, now there is grass, and it should have a cave down there. So I turned on the time orb. I'm trying to figure out this puzzle. And while I'm doing this, at some point, I swear, I noticed the cave back here. I notice this is all grass now. And back in that cave, eventually, I will go back there, I swear. Someday, Snappy, come on. What were you doing? Looking around and making sure I got all the urns. Don't want to miss any urns. I'm going to go back in that cave and I'm going to get that damn cage. Now, I hope. Come on. What are you doing? So, like I said, you have to have the time orb turned on to get this cave. Otherwise, there's sand back here and you can't jump down here. And I think the hole might even be covered up for the cave itself. But even if you come in here, if you don't go far enough, like right now I can't see the cage. Unless I come back in here all the way. So it's pretty easy to think that this cave is just a dead end. Be careful with those cages, because when you open them, I'll say this, the way they unfold, they create an invisible box that kind of pushes outward, and if you're standing in front of them, a lot of times they'll push you off and kill you like that. It happens to me several times while playing this game. Many, many times while playing this game. Woohoo! So this is right after you come out this doorway. And you're going to slow time, jump up these platforms, which is the way you have to go anyway. Again, a lot of these aren't too far off the beaten path. A lot of them are right on the beaten path. If you miss them, I would be concerned. So you're going to climb up here. This is me exploring for the sake of exploring, making sure I got all these cages. And sure enough, right up here, right after you come out that doorway and come up these platforms, here's another cage. As long as you don't get in a rush and jump up the mushrooms, you'll probably find it, as long as you look around. So we are in the mechanical area now. This is right after you get in here, right after you load it up. You're going to jump on these platforms. This is the very, very start of the area. And as you come over here and you jump on this first patch of grass, you're going to turn to your right, and there's a cage. Holy cow, look at that. This is in the first hub area where you have to climb up and around to the very top of that tower before you drop down. Over here by the red doors. If you hit that red door, by the way, it's an achievement. If you hit the red door in this area. But if you run around the base of this tower, you will find a cage up on one of these platforms in the back. I believe it's the back right corner. Is probably the best way to describe it. So this is when you're up and you're climbing around, and again, this is the natural path. You have to follow this path. This cage would be pretty hard to miss. It's right here on the first platform, right after the first set of conveyors. climbing up and around this tower. So this is after you drop down through the center of the tower. You're going to turn around, and behind you, there's a box that leads up to this little tiny doorway. There's a checkpoint in this area right after you drop down. So you can teleport back here and get this one pretty easy. And through that door, there is a cage, and the game shuttered a bunch when I was getting this cage. For some reason, the game shudders really bad in this room on the Xbox One version. I don't know why. It's like very poorly optimized. There was a ton of shuddering in this room. A few other spots in the game, but this room was just like stupid bad. So again, there was the checkpoint. You could teleport back there and get that one pretty easy. So this is after you get down in the lava-y area of the metal smithing area. This is that first, right after you come out of that doorway and you come out here. Natural path, you have to go through this room. There's the hammers. If you get hit by those hammers, there's an achievement. But this cage would be pretty hard to miss. It's right there on the natural path. So this is that next room just on the other side of those hammers. I didn't show me running through here. But you can run past those hammers and you get into this room. There's lots of boxes. There's lots of bad guys in here. There's a turret in here. I recommend coming in here with the time orb out, using the time orb to get over to the turret, then switching to the magnet arm, picking up the turret guy, and shooting a whole bunch of little minion robots. But anyway, you come through here. This is the way you've got to go, but you don't have to come back to this part of the conveyor. But if you do, you will see this. So you can actually make this jump without falling. If you grab it and pull it out, you can actually kind of like clip it just enough to jump off of it and jump up on it. Or you can just die the way I did and it's still out. Again, it will push you off if you stand directly in front of the cage. And that box stays there for a while even after the cage disappears. Come back here, and this is the natural path. So you just came out of that area right back there, and you're going to jump over on the conveyor. And normally you would take a right. You're going to take a left, though. You're going to follow the conveyor backwards. Back down where the conveyor is coming out of. And there's this little hole in the wall back here. This is the room directly underneath where you came out of. And there's a cage in here. So jump over here, get the cage, and jump back to the conveyor. And follow it around to where you're supposed to go. So you're going to come out up here, and normally the game wants you to jump over to that conveyor belt and keep going straight past those hammers. But, oh look, this is open. Let's go up in here and see what this is. Again, just off the main path, it's pretty easy to recognize that cage is down and to jump up here and to check it out. So you're going to jump up these conveyor belts. And there's a cage up here. Yay! And you can easily jump down and continue on your way. In fact, it's almost easier because you can skip that hammer. So this is one I missed. It's pretty easy. You're going to come up here. You get distracted by these platforms floating across the lava. You're supposed to jump across them to get where you want to go. But take a hard right, run to the end of this giant rectangular box thing. And on the corner down here is a cage. Also, this is a lot easier than doing the jumping puzzle platform to get across to the other side of the river. So this is after, I believe, the first set of lasers. After you come out of over there, you'll see the lasers curve back up over here, and there's a cage back here. And just don't follow the conveyor, otherwise you'll miss it. So after you come in here, you're gonna. This is progressing straight. If you go straight across, that's where you're supposed to go. And after you cross this lava gap, there's fans on each side of you. Turn around, and there's a cage back here. So this next one is right after the magnetic platforms when you complete them and jump up. It is right before the checkpoint, like right behind it. If you are coming up the path towards the checkpoint, it's going to be on your right-hand side. This is super easy to miss. And you go back in here, and there's this long stretch. This is probably one of the better ones in the game, in my opinion. It's got a little bit more of a challenge to get to it. It feels like they put it back here intentionally, and they're trying to challenge the player. I really like this one, but it's easy to miss. It's coming up the path on the right-hand side, right before the checkpoint that is by the button that you have to turn on for, I believe it's a fan that shoots you up into the air. It is right before that. I turned around at the checkpoint and walked backwards to get it in this video. I believe maybe you can teleport to that checkpoint. That might be how I got there and why I was turning around at that point. So this is that checkpoint right there. That is me getting the checkpoint where I turned around to get that last one. You follow the checkpoint around, and normally you're supposed to hit this button to turn on this fan. And if you go straight ahead, there's a cage down in this hole, tucked away back here. And our final cage is when you turn around and you're walking back out of this cave. When you're walking out of this cave, it will be on your left-hand side over there, tucked underneath of the fan. And that is our final cage. Thank you all for watching, and again, if you have any questions about where any of these cages are, feel free to ask me in the comments below or shoot me a message on Facebook or Twitter. Like I said, most of these are in the physical order you will pass them for the most part, not necessarily the chronological order in which you can get them. A lot of the ones in the main area you have to come back to after you get a specific power-up. But thank you for watching. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than willing to help you guys. Tell me your thoughts on the guide entirely below. This is the first collectibles style guide I've done, so I'm kind of curious to see how you guys liked it. I wanted to try to make the clips a little bit longer cut so it was a little bit clearer where the areas were, and to provide a little bit of commentary. Most guides for things like these tend to have very short clips with no explanation on where these things are, and you just kind of have to piece it together on your own. And what's the point of a guide if they're not guiding you to the answers? Again, thank you for watching. Have a great day. SnappyDude out. If you hated what you just saw, please smash my big stupid face right now. If you liked what you saw, still smash my big face, and give me a subscribe. If you like this, be sure to check out some of my other content, from book and comic reviews to movie and TV show reviews, as well as some video game gameplay. Also, be sure to follow SnappyDude on Facebook and on Twitter for all my latest content. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great day. Keep on smiling, and SnappyDude out.